Do you enjoy playing tanks in your role-playing games? A character who excels at protecting their allies and being able to absorb blow after blow? Because today we're going to make the best one that Baldur's Gate 3 has ever seen. Oh, and guess what? In BG3, Arcane Archers are actually good. In fact, they're amazing. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody. So here at D4, each week I take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I like to crunch numbers about them, I like to theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you the right way or the best way to play a character, but in the hopes of exploring one way to build a character in the hopes of creating something that's both really fun but also really powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you are just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, or if you just enjoy theory crafting, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and I am so glad that you are here. So thanks for watching. My name is Colby, but you can call me Cheerbear if you want to. All right, so I told you guys that as long as the BG3 videos were performing well, I'd keep making them, and here we are a couple of months after patch 8 dropped, and the 2 videos that I've done on new patch 8 BG3 builds are sitting at my number 1 and number 2 spots for best performers over the last 10 videos. Yeah, I'm talking about the Bladesinger and the Hexblade, and then just the more patch 8 BG3 builds video from just 2 or 3 weeks ago, up there if you missed them. So I am nothing if not an optimizer. I can't ignore the results. Let's do another one. And for those who aren't as interested in BG3 content, don't worry. I promise to keep doing D&D builds at least every other week like I've been doing. One note. In the last video, I got a lot of requests from people to do more gameplay footage of the builds. And since, yes, I'm determined to keep these videos under an hour, sorry, it's just better for the algorithm, then I'm going to try and add a few minutes of gameplay at the end of each build, but that means I'm only going to be doing 2 builds again instead of the 3 that I crammed in last time. Also, I get a lot of people commenting on gear and what gear would I recommend, etc. And while I have done builds that go pretty in-depth on gear and actually kind of do the whole build around getting the right magic items, right? See the Night Radiant, for example, or also the Icebreaker was another one. Both were really fun and cool, I thought. I'm kind of generally more interested in and think these builds are a little more useful if I just kind of build them so that they work regardless of what gear you have. Sure, there's stuff that will really enhance the build, and I might make mention of a piece or 2 of equipment that can really help or amplify what you're trying to do, but I don't really know how you are going to play this character. Are you going to make a decision in the game for like roleplay purposes, right, that might not let you have access to a particular piece of equipment? Would you rather skip a section or a quest, meaning you won't get that gear? And hey, maybe you can find something that works just as well or even better in a particular gear slot than something that I say is a must-have piece. Part of the fun of these builds, I think, is discovering and being delighted by some magic item that enhances the build in ways that you or I hadn't thought of. So I will generally keep my comments on the right equipment to a minimum. Besides, that potentially takes up a lot more time too. All right, you ready to jump in? I proudly present BG3 episode number 17, the Arcane Archer and the Crown Pally Tank. All right, so first up, we are going to build around one of the coolest fighter subclasses conceptually in all of D&D, but one that is more poorly executed on than just about any other fighter subclass in D&D 5e. Yes, I'm talking about the Arcane Archer. I mean, we have spell swords, right? But a spell bow is something that's arguably even more unique and super cool and interesting, right? A character who infuses their ranged weapon attacks with magic to spectacular and deadly effect sounds awesome. But alas, yeah, I hate to say it, but Wizards of the Coast really kind of drops the ball with the concept in D&D 5e. I've tried to work around the Arcane Archer, and frankly, I think you can do cool stuff with the subclass. Here's what I think is my best attempt. But the truth is that in D&D at least, the subclass is a lot stronger when you only take a few levels of it and then go mostly with a different class to increase their strength. Thankfully, in typical Larian fashion, the subclass is much improved in BG3. Some of the seemingly kind of pointless restrictions are removed here, and what they have gets nicely buffed. That said, I still think the subclass shines brightest with some multi-classing love, so let's get into how I think we can get the most out of them. At level 1 for our starting class, yeah, we're gonna go fighter. I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't just beeline for all of our most important class and subclass features here, so let's enjoy all the benefits of starting off as a fighter, including all the weapon and armor proficiencies, constitution saving throw proficiency, in case we want to concentrate on a spell later, especially, and an incredibly important fighting style. For our starting ability scores, I'm gonna say let's start with a 15 dexterity and take a +2 there, a 15 intelligence and a +1 there, and a 14 constitution. The reason for the 16 intelligence is because the DC of our Arcane Archer magical shots will be based on our intelligence, so it's important to get a decent number there. That said, yeah, there's always the headband of intellect if you can get it and don't have another head piece, right, that you really want to be wearing on this character, so feel free to bump that constitution a little higher and or your charisma or your wisdom if need be. As for the equipment that we should generally be going for on this character, I'm going to say it sort of depends on how we want to play him. If you want to be good at stealth, whether because you don't have another rogue-like character in your party, or maybe because you're going to play this character on a solo run, which I think they would excel at, personally, then go with the best light armor that you can find so as to avoid disadvantage on stealth rolls, right? Otherwise, sure, you're a fighter, go for the best heavy armor that you can get. No penalty in this game for wearing heavy armor, but having a low strength score. That's awfully kind of Larian. For weapons, though, you're going to want either the best two-handed bow you can find, probably a longbow or a heavy crossbow, or the best hand crossbows you can get and dual wield them. More on the pros and cons of each a bit later. At Fighter 1, then, we get a fighting style, and we will, of course, want the best fighting style in the game, mechanically, especially in a world where the sharpshooter feat exists in its 2014 version, archery, so that we can enjoy a +2 to hit on all of our ranged weapon attacks. We also get second wind, so that once per short rest, we can heal ourselves a little bit. At level 2, we get Action Surge, which is just one of the best abilities in the whole game, giving us a second action on our turn once per short rest. Infinitely useful for burst damage, or if we need an action to set ourselves up for combat, etc., etc. You know who else is infinitely useful, though? My channel members and patrons. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out and thank you to those members and patrons. You guys are the best. I could not do this without you. Thank you so much for your support. Everybody else, I would love it if you'd consider becoming a member or a patron. If you look in the video description, there's a little link on how to check out either option, right? And yeah, all the perks that I give to members and patrons, I give to anyone who subscribes at just the silver level or higher, and I just ask that you pay what you feel like you can afford and what you think it's worth. Those perks include access to the library of write-ups that I do for each of my builds so that you can recreate them yourself a little more easily, access to the community Discord server, and even access to the live monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we do. If you are not interested in supporting the channel in this way, or don't feel like you can afford it, that's totally fine. Thank you for just being here. Liking, subscribing, commenting, these are also great ways to support. So thanks for doing any and or all of those things. At level 3, we get our subclass, and of course we are going with Arcane Archer, and yes, as I've said, there are a slew of much needed and much appreciated improvements the subclass gets for BG3, so let's go over them, shall we? First up, we get a couple of nice little ribbon features, proficiency in the Arcana and Nature skills, as well as the Guidance cantrip, always super useful to give a D4 to your skill checks. I use this spell all the time in social and lockpicking situations. And yeah, right off the bat, even our ribbons are improved for BG3. D&D gives you Arcana or Nature, and then the Prestidigitation or Druidcraft cantrips. I guess in BG3 we could choose the Light or True Strike cantrip instead of Guidance, but that would be silly. But then there's the bread and butter feature of the subclass, Arcane Shots. We're told that we get 4 Arcane Arrows here, a resource that resets on a short rest that we can use on our turn for one of 3 Arcane Shots. Cool new abilities, similar to, say, the Battlemaster Fighter's maneuvers, right? That just give us a cool new powerful addition to our ranged attacks. Right off the bat, one improvement is that we can use these on any ranged weapon attacks, not just longbows and short bows, so that's nice. Also, in D&D, we only get to choose 2 Arcane Shot options, and we can only use them twice per short rest. Twice. one of the most damning things about the subclass. Here we get 4 per short rest, right, and 3 selections, so we're already like head and shoulders above where we're at with the subclass in D&D. But wait, there's more. Because the arcane shots themselves are just so much better in Baldur's Gate 3, generally speaking. I'm not going to go over every one of them in detail, but here we've got Banishing Arrow, Beguiling Arrow, Bursting, Enfeebling, Grasping, Piercing, Seeking, and Shadow Arrow. They're all honestly pretty cool and situationally useful, but I think that the 3 I would take are Grasping, Seeking, and then either Shadow, Banishing, or Bursting. So let me explain each of those a little bit. First up, the way they work is essentially like so many other abilities in game. Instead of just choosing to make a regular ranged attack, you actually choose to make an arcane shot attack specifically. Unfortunately, this means you can't, say, couple an arcane shot with a special arrow, like a multi-target arrow or an arrow of humanoid slaying, etc., right? Grasping Shot is potentially the best single target damage dealer. When we use it, our attack does an extra 2d6 of poison damage. Make sure your target isn't immune before attacking, right? And then if they fail a saving throw, it both slows their move speed by 10 feet, nice for helping to keep them at range as a ranged character, right? And deals an extra 2d6 slashing damage when they move. It's not like in D&D where they just take that damage whether they move using their own move speed or you push them, but seeing as how most enemies in both D&D and BG3 are melee, there's a very high likelihood that they'll move on their turn. And also, the AI doesn't seem to be that great at knowing that it's going to take damage if it moves, right? So they pretty much just move if that's what they normally would do. And as a result, in my experience, almost always take that extra 2d6 of damage as long as they fail their save against it, meaning an extra 4d6 of damage total with a single attack. And that's pretty awesome. The other options that we get for Arcane Shot are pretty great too, though. I think my overall favorite might actually be Seeking Arrow. It only adds 1d6 of force damage, but it is a guaranteed hit. And in a world where you sometimes just really need to make sure you land an attack, especially if you have penalties to your hit chance, for example, it is so very nice. Also though, when you use Seeking Arrow, it forces the enemy to make a dexterity saving throw, or they have the Fairy Fire spell applied to them for 2 rounds, meaning that all attacks against them have advantage and they can't go invisible, right? And this means that your additional attacks on them are going to be a lot more likely to hit. So it's really nice to like start off with this, guarantee the hit, and then potentially give yourself an increased hit chance on additional attacks thereafter to just blow them up. As for the third option, I think I would prefer Shadow Arrow over any of them. It does an extra 2d6 of psychic damage, and if it hits, forces a wisdom saving throw or blinds the enemy for 2 turns, meaning that again, you have advantage on attacks against them, but also they have disadvantage on attacks against you, right? It's even better than Fairy Fire, with more extra damage on a hit, but it isn't guaranteed like Seeking Arrow, so I would probably use Seeking on enemies with a low dexterity save and or a really high armor class, right? And then Shadow against enemies with a lower wisdom save and or a lower AC. However, you could totally make an argument for others not Shadow Arrow, most notably I think Banishing Arrow, which basically just straight up casts the 4th level spell Banishment on a target if you hit them, only you don't have to concentrate on the banishment spell, right? And you do the attack's damage to them first, but then they have to make a charisma saving throw. That's usually a pretty good save to target against most enemies, or else they're just banished to the Feywild for 2 rounds, meaning they can't move or take any actions or bonus actions. It's really strong. Definitely stronger control than, say, just blinding an enemy. I guess for me, I kind of tend to be like, if I'm going to take up my action and my resources to do damage to an enemy, I'd like to just kind of continue going and take them out. Death is a much stronger condition to place on enemies than banished, But yeah, in a tough fight against a lot of opponents, sure, taking one out of the fight so that you can focus on the others and then going back and finishing off that enemy when they come back from the Feywild, definitely not a bad option to have. Finally, I do think Bursting Arrow is at least worth considering. You make your attack against the main target, and then you get a little 2d6 force damage burst in a medium-sized, like 17-foot radius. The nice thing is that no one gets a save against that 2d6 force damage. It just does full damage automatically. It's a decent option if you've got one target that's almost dead and another like standing relatively close so that you can just get started on that second target, right, and take out the first one at the same time. Or, sure, if you've got multiple enemies packed in tight. I do think that Bursting Arrow is a much better option than the other, like multi-target Arcane Shot Piercing Arrow, which does some decent damage to every enemy in just a 30-foot long, 5-foot wide line. But with Piercing Arrow, you're not actually making an attack against anyone, so it's not going to apply sharpshooter damage, among other things, which we're going to talk about next level. Feel free to play around with it, or other options if you want, but these to me are the best of the bunch. And I will showcase some of my favorites in gameplay footage in a few minutes here. Oh, one last thing to mention that I really love. If your attack misses, then your Arcane Shot isn't used up, and that feels super generous of Larian. Such nice people. Okay. At level 4, we get a feat, and as a ranged character, yes, of course, our priority here is the Sharpshooter feat, which says that we don't suffer from attacking from low ground. I really wish it gave you the you don't suffer disadvantage for making long-ranged attacks, like in D&D, honestly, especially if we're using hand crossbows, that would be nice, but that's all right. But then, yes, if we want to, we can go all in, right? Giving us a -5 chance to hit on our ranged attacks, but doing 10 flat extra damage when we do. And this is just so powerful. And yeah, it works with all of our arcane shots too, at least the ones that target a single enemy. It's so good. At level 5, we get extra attack so that we can make 2 attacks on our turn instead of 1. And yes, they can both be arcane shots if we have the resources. And then at level 6, we get, as a fighter, a bonus feat, right? They get a feat at 6 uniquely among the classes. It's so great. And I would probably just bump dexterity, I think, but it kind of depends. If you got a +1 to any ability score from the mean old lady early in the game and gave it to this character, and you're wearing the clothing armor that gives you a +2 to your dexterity, I'll showcase it later, then you would be capped at 20 already, 20 dex, right? And so you could take something else. A crossbow expert is nice, but it isn't as necessary in BG3 as it is in D&D. Remember, you can dual wield hand crossbows in this game just like any light weapons, meaning that you can get a bonus action attack with like an offhand hand crossbow without the crossbow expert feat. Crossbow expert then really just has the benefit of not imposing disadvantage on you if you're making ranged attacks while an enemy is within 5 feet of you. And that's not nothing, especially if you're doing a solo run with this build. Enemies can get up in your business all the time. But it does only work if you're using crossbows specifically. So if you're instead using a nice longbow or something, there's not much benefit here, right? I would largely plan on dual wielding hand crossbows with this build though. Once you've got sharpshooter, that's a lot of damage from a bonus action attack that you'd have to have a really amazing longbow to surpass the damage with. Maybe the Titan string longbow if you've got plenty of elixirs of giant strength, I suppose. So yeah, I'm bumping dexterity or taking crossbow expert here, depending on what equipment I have and whether or not I used the hag's hair for this character. At level 7 though, I do like the Arcane Archer features at Fighter 7, but I think it's time to multi-class. I would get some, no, not Thief Rogue levels, at least not yet. I think I'd go Bard first. And you probably know why. So as a Bard 1, we get Bardic Inspiration, which lets us 3 times per long rest use a bonus action to inspire an ally so they can add a d6 to their next attack, ability check, or save. Super useful, though we will be selfishly using those inspiration charges ourselves, mostly, I think, in a couple of levels anyways. As for the Bard spells to grab here, I mean, Friends is nice for conversation utility, right? Minor Illusion can sometimes be useful. Cure Wounds or Healing Word, of course, Bane and Fairy Fire are solid debuffs, but I don't really think I'd be starting off combat on this character by trying to cast a debuff spell with my concentration, like Bane or Fairy Fire. I'm definitely building this character to be a big ranged, like burst damage dealer above all. So I'd plan on letting a different party member be the buffer or debuffer or controller, and maybe just grab Heroism to throw on myself with concentration before combat starts so that I can get 5 temporary hit points at the beginning of each round and be immune to Frightened. Not a bad use of a spell slot, honestly. At level 8, we would be a Bard 2, meaning we get Song of Rest. This gives us just 1 more free short rest, basically, and that's pretty amazing, especially as an Arcane Archer who gets their arcane shots back on a short rest. Then we also get Jack of all trades, which lets us add half of our proficiency bonus to ability checks that we're not already proficient in. At level 9, though, we'd be a Bard 3, and this is where things get really, really good on this build, because as a Bard 3, we get expertise first off, which lets us double our proficiency bonus in 2 skills that we're proficient in. Go ahead and PYF here, pick your favorites, whatever your character and your party need most. But then, yes, we get our Bard College, our subclass. And we, of course, are going with what I've argued is one of, if not the best subclasses in all of Baldur's Gate 3, though I do think that's probably changed now with the introduction of Blade Singers, but we can fight about that in the comments. Yes, I'm talking about the Swords Bard. Oh, they are so very good and so very powerful in this game, especially as a ranged weapon master. Ironically, because the name is Swords Bard. But anyways, as a Swords Bard, we first up get a fighting style, but we can only choose between the dueling and the 2-weapon fighting styles, which is fine because 2-weapon fighting is exactly what we want, letting us add now our dexterity bonus to the damage we do with that bonus action offhand hand crossbow attack, right? Assuming we're making one, and that's a nice little bump. But then, best of all, we get blade flourishes, and my goodness, are these overpowered in this game. Blade flourishes work similarly to arcane shots, in that when we attack, instead of just making a regular attack, we can make a flourish, right? So yeah, unfortunately that means we can't make both an arcane shot and a flourish with the same attack, right? How cool would it be if we could add like a special arrow too at the same time and do all 3? I would probably be overpowered. And that's fine. There are 3 flourishes. A defensive flourish lets us make an attack, adding our Bardic Inspiration die to the damage if we hit, and then adds 4 to our armor class until our next turn. Nice. Mobile Flourish adds the damage to the attack and then pushes the target back 20 feet, letting us even teleport to them if we want, but we don't because we're ranged. But, you know, that's going to be nice if we're really trying to keep enemies at bay, right? So that we can continue enjoying advantages from making ranged attacks against them. But then there is the cream of the crop, Slashing Flourish, which in this game for ranged just straight up lets you make 2 attacks instead of 1. They can even be against the same target, and it's just silly powerful, especially when combined with Sharpshooter. As for the 2nd level Bard spells we get here, go ahead and pick your favorite. I'd probably focus on utility and situationally useful stuff like invisibility, enhance ability, silence, etc. Okay, at this point, why don't we pause for a minute and do some gameplay footage to see what all of these arcane shots and flourishes can do on the battlefield, shall we? For our Arcane Archer playthrough, I'm just using a playthrough that I'm in the middle of right now as Lae'zel. I'm going to be kind of solo here, and, you know, let me just show you what I've got gear-wise. There's nothing, like, super special that, like, the build is dependent on or anything. I've got, you know, the best hand crossbows I can find, and just, like, some rings that do damage on a hit. Might as well put a shield on, it'll raise our AC. So that's nice. And yeah, just gear that kind of gives, well, the Cloak of Displacement's amazing. But yeah, like, none of this is absolutely must-have for the build to work, right? Extra damage on hits, that's great. The Horns of the Berserker actually works on ranged attacks, even though it says melee and unarmed. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Thanks to the Graceful Cloth, which is one of my favorite like chest pieces you can get in the game for a dex-based player anyways. You know, I took the Sharpshooter feat and the Crossbow Expert feat because why not? I've got a 20 dexterity thanks to this and the +1 from the Hag. So yeah, let's go pick a fight. I'm at a place in this playthrough right now where everyone in the castle is mad at me, except the Steel Watchers have been kind of neutralized or disabled. I won't go into why. Before the fight starts, let's go ahead and, you know, throw Longstrider on ourselves. Sure, it's a good spell. Doesn't take a spell slot because it's a ritual, and Heroism. That's going to require concentration, but some temporary hit points. And then I'm like just gonna run in. I'm not gonna try and surprise or anything. We're just gonna go. As you can see, these Steel Watchers aren't doing anything, which I'm not complaining about. So yeah, we'll just run up. We are in range here of this first enemy. Let's go ahead and try a Grasping Arrow on them. See what happens. Well, they saved against Grasping Arrow, as enemies so often do.
But you know what? They're almost dead anyways, so I'm just going to go ahead and take my offhand weapon shot. And I killed him. That's what I thought would happen. I've still got one more attack, but these guys are so far away that I don't think I can reach them. So we're just going to go ahead and camp out here and let them come to me. Let's get a little closer, make sure we're in range. And then, yeah, let's use some slashing flourishes, shall we? Kaboom. Nice. One more ought to take them down. Oh, except I missed. That's unfortunate. You know what? Let's go for... Oh, and they're so close. Let's go ahead and action surge. And I'm going to use Seeking Arrow just because I really want to make sure I hit and just finish this target off. Oh, I leveled. Nice. Okay, and I am in range for Fiseric. You know what, I'm going to use Seeking Arrow again, because I want to try and blind him and see if I can get advantage for next round. Alright, or I mean, I said blind, sorry. I meant put Fairy Fire on. So yeah, now I'll have advantage, that's awesome. Doesn't really matter in this particular fight because they seem to be bugged for some reason and they're not attacking, but you know, assuming that they were actually able to attack, well, fortunately they've got Fairy Fire on them. And what should we do for our last shot? Grasping Arrow hasn't worked yet. Shadow Arrow's so cool. How much health do they have? This probably isn't enough to take them out, but since I have advantage... Just kidding, it was. So yeah, I mean, that's the Arcane Archer in a nutshell. Super powerful. So many fun options to play with as far as, you know, flourishes, arcane shots. I used up all my arcane shots there. Fortunately, they reset on a short rest with the way that I'm built right now, so I could get those back. You want to use those, right, a little more frequently probably than the flourishes if you're only going to go to Bard 3. More on that in a second.
Okay, at level 10, either you stay Bard to 5 so that you can get another feat if you need it, get a more powerful Bardic Inspiration, and more importantly, get one more use of Bardic Inspiration and have your inspirations reset on a short rest, plus 3rd level Bard spells, and then go back to Fighter 7 to finish it to get Curving Shot, which lets you use a bonus action to attack a different target if you miss your first one, kind of cool, as well as one more Arcane Shot option and 3 more Arcane Arrows per short rest to use on them. That is all very compelling, I'm not going to lie. I think this is probably the route I would go if I either have a two-handed bow that is a lot more powerful than my hand crossbows, or I don't want to take as many long rests and just get more resources back on short rests. I think the route that just has a higher capacity for total damage in a single fight, though, is finishing the build with 3 levels of Rogue here. So let's quickly talk about what that would look like. Assuming we do, at level 10, we'd be a Rogue 1, and that means we get another round of expertise, PYF there on your skills, and then we get Sneak Attack, yes, which lets you, once per turn, add a d6 of damage to an attack, so long as you are making it with a ranged or finesse weapon, and are attacking with advantage, or hitting an enemy who's standing within 5 feet of an ally, right? And that's a nice little bit of damage that we should be able to get pretty reliably. So that's one more solid reason to go the Rogue route here at the end of the build. At level 11, we'd be a Rogue 2. That means we get Cunning Action so that we can take the dash, hide, or disengage actions as a bonus action instead. That's great when you need it. And then at level 12, we would be a Rogue 3. That means we get our subclass. And yes, in case you hadn't guessed, that would mean we get to go Thief. And Thief is just amazing. Not for the second story work feature, which we get here, which would let us take half damage if we fall, but because of the incredibly potent Fast Hands ability, which just straight up gives us a second bonus action. And I mean, yeah, with Sharpshooter especially, plus any other bonuses on a hit to damage, right, that you might have, one more bonus action attack every single round from that offhand hand crossbow is just a lot of extra damage. It's not a no-brainer, and going this route instead of like Bard 5 Fighter 7 would make those long stretches where you're prohibited from taking a long rest, right? I'm thinking endgame especially. It would make those sections a lot more difficult unless, you had a bunch of long rest potions saved up. But I just really like the increased damage per round from that extra offhand attack. Plus, you do get your arcane arrows back at least on a short rest, even if you stay at Bard 3. And you've likely got a bunch of really powerful special arrows in your inventory as well, so depending on what we're fighting, we might not necessarily need to be using a flourish or an arcane shot every single attack anyways, right? So yeah, this is probably the route I would go, I think, but again, Bard 5 Fighter 7 is by no means a bad idea either. And sure, I guess I should probably mention, you could always respec to Bard 6 Fighter 3 Rogue 3. You'd have one less feat, but as long as you don't need it, yeah, Bard 6 would get us extra attack, right, as a swords bard, and our better bardic inspirations on a short rest, so you could kind of have your cake and eat it too, getting all of your special attacks back on a short rest instead. Not to mention better spells, better spell slots. I couldn't really call the build an Arcane Archer build in that case, though, could I? More of a swords bard with an Arcane Archer dip, but yeah, it's a pretty solid option once you hit level 9 and beyond. Okay. Finally, don't forget that at Rogue 3, our sneak attack goes up to 2d6 on a hit. And that is it for the Arcane Archer. I think they're absolutely my new favorite ranged build in the game. It is just awesome to have a ton of fun special attacks in combat. It sort of feels like a Swiss Army knife of ranged damage, right? Do you want to flourish and make multiple attacks, or maybe push an enemy or increase your armor class if things are getting a little bit dangerous? Or do you want to use a slew of different arcane shot options to do extra damage, to debuff enemies? It's just, there's so much that you can do. And when you throw the special arrows into the mix too, it's just every single attack is something cool and unique and fun and powerful. Like you're an endless bag of tricks. Should we move on to what is undoubtedly the best tank in all of BG3 now? Yeah, I am talking about the Oath of the Crown Paladin. I love the Oath of the Crown so much, and was so excited when I saw that they were putting them in the game. The very first Paladin I ever played in D&D was an Oath of the Crown Pally, and as much as I loved them, I was a little bit disappointed by how they actually played, mechanically, as opposed to what the description of the character, and especially their most potent ability, reads like in the description of the character in the book, right? Thankfully, as they almost always seem to do, Larian has kind of stepped in with this subclass and made the mechanics of the Oath of the Crown match the description and flavor and fantasy of the character. And the result is, yeah, the best tank in the game, no question, in my opinion. So let's talk about how to build them. At level 1, for our starting class, yeah, I think we just start off as a paladin right at level 1, though we will be doing some multi-classing. We don't get heavy armor proficiency unless we start as a pally 1, so let's do that. Now, I don't typically recommend a specific race on my BG3 builds, but in this case, I am going to make an exception. If you're building this character to be durable and survivable above all, then I think you've got to strongly consider two options here. Either a gold dwarf for the extra hit point per level that you get. It's not the most overpowered thing ever, but more hit points are more hit points. And we are going to make each hit point worth 2. So yeah, I think that's the route I would go. The one exception I'd consider here, though, would be Githyanki. But that is specifically only if you plan on getting a specific set of armor, which I'll talk about later in the build. So put a pin in that for now. For our starting ability scores, I'm going to say let's go with a 14 Charisma, take a +2 there, a 15 Constitution and a +1, and then a 14 Wisdom for now. Wait, what about Strength? What are we making attacks with? Our Smile? Sure, you might want a good Strength score at first until you can respec via Withers, right? But after that, yeah, I would prioritize Charisma, as we will discuss in a minute. For equipment on this character, we're mostly going to want to prioritize heavy armor at first. We're going to switch to the best medium armor we can find later. We're going to want a shield, of course, and then just your favorite one-handed weapon. As a Paladin 1, we get Lay on Hands, which is a nice little heal that we can use with a touch. and an action in case of emergency. But then we also get Channel Oath, aka our Channel Divinity in D&D, but right at level 1 in Baldur's Gate 3, which here we can use either for Divine Sense, which is way better in this game, letting us use a bonus action to straight up just have advantage on attacks against Celestials, Fiends, and Undead. But we can also use Channel Oath for something from our subclass, because yes, we also get our subclass right at Pally 1 in Baldur's Gate 3. And of course, we are going to go with Oath of the Crown. Here's the description that we get from Larian. You have sworn yourself to the ideals of civilization, serving the laws that hold society together and preserving the order they command. Now, I think it's important to go over the Oath's tenets here, especially as an Oath of the Crown pally, because in my experience, after playing them for several hours now, I feel like it's easier to inadvertently break your oath and become an Oathbreaker than it is on any other paladin. So here are the tenets. Law. Uphold civilization and order. Loyalty. Your word is your bond. Without loyalty, oaths and laws are meaningless. And responsibility. Deal with the consequences of your action and fulfill your duties and obligations. Maybe I just tend to play my characters as like chaotic good rather than lawful good, but yeah, I've become an Oathbreaker like 3 or 4 times already on my current Oath of the Crown Paladin, so just be prepared to be like a real Boy Scout or Girl Scout with this character, or plan on spending a lot of gold to redeem yourself. As a Crown Pally, though, we get Righteous Clarity, first of all, which lets us use a bonus action and our Channel Oath charge, which, remember, we get back on a short rest, to give ourselves or an ally a bonus to hit equal to our proficiency bonus. That's pretty awesome. That's a +2 to hit for now, but +4 eventually. Buff that Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master using ally, and they will never miss. Okay, at level 2, yeah, we're going to multi-class, and yeah, we're going to take a level of Warlock, because at Warlock 1, we get our subclass, and of course, we're going Hexblade. Is that 3 Baldur's Gate 3 videos now with 3 Hexblade dips? Yeah, now the non-D&D players are seeing why so many D&Ders complain about Hexblades. To be fair, it's only 2 dips to date. One of the builds that I did with Hexblade was a full Hexblade, so there. Anyways, of course you don't have to do this, but man, you sure get a ton out of just a single level dip into Hexblade. And yeah, we're mostly here for the Hex Warrior feature, which gives us proficiency in armor and weapons that we don't need, but then also lets us bind a hexed weapon. So you can use your charisma modifier instead of your strength to make attacks, and it's just a little bit glorious. Especially in this game, as we'll get to later. Just a reminder, one cool thing about the Hex weapon in BG3 is that every time you attack with it, you have what appears to be about a 20% chance to apply your Hexblade's curse to the target, the other Hexblade feature, right? Remember, this is something that you can typically do once per short rest as a bonus action to a single target, so that thereafter you do additional damage to them when you hit them equal to your proficiency bonus, and your chance to crit them is also increased. Plus, if the enemy dies while cursed, you regain hit points equal to your charisma modifier plus your warlock level. It's a really great way to get a little extra damage and healing. And being able to just automatically apply it every once in a while, just by making attacks, is pretty cool. As for the warlock spells to pick up here, I would grab Shield for sure, which is uniquely available to Hexblades as a warlock, right? So very good. So we can use our reaction to increase our armor class by 5 when we're hit for the rest of the round. And of course, you'll want Armor of Agathis for some temporary hit points that return cold damage to melee attackers, so long as those temporary hit points remain. Perfect for our tanky selves as we actively try to get attacked. And you know what? I'm thinking now that when I did the gameplay footage for this build, which you'll see at the end, I forgot to use Armor of Agathis. Shame on me. It's a good spell. Anyways, at level 3, with our Hex weapon and awesome spells secured, it's time to get back to Paladin for a while. At Pally 2, we get a fighting style, and I'd probably just go with defense here to increase our armor class. We are a tank, after all. You could alternatively go with more damage with the dueling fighting style, right? Or sure, protection, but remember, BG3 uses the 2014 version of D&D 5e rules, and that means protection kind of sucks. You use your reaction to impose disadvantage on an attack against a nearby ally, but it only imposes disadvantage on a single attack, and we will have a much better use of our reaction eventually, plus a much better way to impose disadvantage on a lot more attacks in a minute. And we also here get the infamous Divine Smite so that we can spend a spell slot when we hit with a melee attack to do an extra 2d8 radiant damage plus 1d8 more for every higher level spell slot we spend for it, right? A really nice way to add some burst damage to your tank. Finally, we also get Paladin spells here, and I'd be sure to pick up Cure Wounds for some more healing power and then plan on concentrating for now on either Shield of Faith or Bless. Bless is typically the better choice as it gives a d4 to every attack and saving throw of 3 party members, more if we upcast it, and that's incredible. Shield of Faith, on the other hand, simply increases one party member's armor class by 2. But I mean, if someone else in the party can cast Bless, it's pretty fun to really try and get your AC super high, right? Or sure, put it on a squishier companion. At level 4, we would be a Paladin 3. That means we get Divine Health, which means we're immune to disease. Cool. But then, as a Crown Paladin, we get 2 new uses for our Channel Oath. The first, Turn the Tide, lets you use a bonus action to heal all of your allies within 30 feet for a d6 plus your Paladin level plus your Charisma modifier. And it doesn't have that pesky, so long as they have no more than half of their hit points restriction from D&D that's totally lame. But even better is the vastly improved Champion Challenge, which essentially works like you think it should and really want it to in D&D. Here, you again use a bonus action and your Channel Oath charge to force all enemies within 30 feet to make a Wisdom save. Really wish there wasn't a save, but I'm probably asking too much. Or else they are compelled, yes, compelled to attack you. In D&D, the only thing this ability actually does, despite some misleading flavor text to the contrary, is prevent enemies from willingly moving more than 30 feet away from you. In BG3, they essentially get a taunt-like condition placed on them where for 10 beautiful turns, they sort of just have to attack you. And what's even better is that if they do end up attacking someone else, usually because their attacks are multi-target or area of effect attacks, attacks against your allies will be made with disadvantage. So it's sort of what I call a soft taunt and a hard taunt all rolled into one. And it affects multiple enemies, potentially the entire battlefield, and it lasts for a minute. Whew, it is so good. Now, yeah, the Wisdom save kinda sucks, especially since in this game, I swear enemies just roll unnaturally high on saving throws for some reason, but still, I'll take it. And actually, the only thing that kind of sucks about it is that the effect ends if the enemy moves more than 30 feet away from you. And unlike in D&D, ironically perhaps, they're not prohibited from doing so. So yeah, the AI doesn't seem to be smart enough to sort of intentionally do this, but if they just so happen to get far away from you, the condition ends, which is kind of lame. Anyways, it's still an amazing tank ability, and I love it. Speaking of tank abilities, yeah, we get some nice free spells as a Crown Paladin as well. Command to force a Wisdom saving throw, or have the enemy flee or grovel prone or approach you, etc. And then Compelled Duel, which, though it requires a bonus action as well and our concentration, is another way to put yet another taunt on an enemy if they fail their Wisdom save against it, though it only lasts for 3 turns. Altogether, some nice taunty, tanky features here. At level 5, we would be a Pally 4, and that means we get a feat. And, I mean, if we were truly building this character for survivability above all else, we should just take the tough feat here, which gives us 2 hit points per character level. It's not amazing, it's not a no-brainer, but later on, those 2 hit points are going to feel like 4, and trust me, we're going to want as many hit points as we can get on this character, as you'll see in the gameplay. So it's really not a bad option if you don't want to bump Charisma instead, right, for more damage and to buff your upcoming Aura of Protection, give yourself a better spell save, DC, etc. At level 6, we would be a Pally 5, and that means we get extra attack, and that's great, so we can attack twice on our turn. But then we also get 2nd level Paladin spells, and Oath of the Crown Pallies get Spiritual Weapon for free, which is a fine concentration-free way to get a little more damage out of your bonus action if you want. But the big winner here is the Warding Bond spell that we get for free. I feel like I've been talking about this spell a lot lately. It's just so dang good. Doesn't require concentration, lasts all day, and gives the ally that you cast it on a +1 to their armor class and to their saving throws, and then any damage that they take gets cut in half, basically, and you take the same amount, right? They have resistance, but then you take the same amount of damage. Oh, we are going to get a lot of mileage out of this spell, and yeah, it's probably our most important spell in the game. It increases your squishiest ally's survivability by a huge amount, and transfers some of the pain they might take anyways onto you where it belongs, you little masochist. At level 7, we would be a Paladin 6, and that means we get Aura of Protection, which is just so very good. It gives us and our allies within 10 feet an admittedly fairly small area, right? A bonus to all saving throws equal to our Charisma modifier, which makes me so very happy to have that Hexblade dip. At level 8, we would be a Paladin 7, and that means we get Divine Allegiance as an Oath of the Crown Pally, and this is a feature I don't necessarily love in D&D, but in BG3, and especially on this build, I really like it. In D&D, it says that when an ally within 5 feet of us takes damage, you can use your reaction to take the damage instead, but that the damage can't be reduced in any way. In BG3, we're told that with the same 5-foot restriction, with our reaction, we can just take 2 times our Paladin level in radiant damage to heal the ally for 2 times our Paladin level. So right now, that would mean we're taking 14 radiant damage and they're healing 14 hit points. It's less painful for us, and it's arguably less helpful for an ally if, they take like 50 damage and then we take the 50 damage instead. It kind of depends on what you're fighting, but we are going to do something that makes this ability a whole lot better. And it starts at level 9 by taking some levels in Barbarian. That's right, we are a bit of a holy warrior today, but for very different reasons than the one I used in that very first ever build I did for BG3 so many moons ago that I don't have any cards left to point to, but that's what the thumbnail looks like. As a Barbarian 1, we get that beautiful, wonderful Rage feature, which says that twice per day, as a bonus action, we can go into a Rage state, dealing 2 more damage from our melee and thrown weapon attacks, and most importantly for us, gain resistance to physical damage. One very nice way to improve our survivability. Now, unfortunately, we can't wear heavy armor in order to benefit from Rage, and that is going to be a blow to our AC most likely, nor can we concentrate on or cast spells when Rage is active, which is a bummer. Especially because, no more shield spell, right? But I do still think it's worth using Rage, especially later, but even now. And, especially since things like Armor of Agathis and Warding Bond don't require concentration. And we can still smite if need be, because that's not considered casting a spell in this version of the D&D 5e rule set. And we'll often be using our reaction on Divine Allegiance anyways, instead of shield, right? So we're golden. We do also get the unarmored defense feature here, which says that our armor class is equal to 10 plus our dexterity modifier plus our constitution modifier if we're not wearing armor. And depending on how you build and what cool it's clothing, but it's still kind of armor equipment you have available, it might be worth taking advantage of. At level 10, we'd be a Barbarian 2, which means we get Danger Sense. This gives us advantage on dexterity saving throws. That's nice. And then the really wonderful Reckless Attack, which lets us have advantage on our melee attack rolls at the cost of giving enemies advantage on their attacks against us, right? One thing I should mention. Unlike in D&D, you can benefit from Rage and Reckless attacks despite your attacks not being made with strength. That's pretty sweet, and thus the Hexblade dip, right? And it works well. Now, do we want to use Reckless attack on this build? Maybe not as much as other Barbarians would. We're not doing crazy amounts of damage here. It's not really what we're built for, and I'm not 100% sure how much more enticing a target you are to the AI if the enemy detects that they have advantage on attacks against you, right? If it's significant, then sure, go for it. And I appreciate that, you don't have to choose before attacking to Reckless attack. You can wait to see if you hit first, right? That's unique to BG3 and it's nice. But you might have them compelled to attack you regardless thanks to your, Pally AoE taunt, right? In which case, I'm a little more hesitant to offer up free advantage on their attacks. I want them to attack me, yes, but I also really want to be hard to kill. It's going to depend on what you're attacking, who's compelled to try and hit you, how compelling your allies are by contrast, but I'll just say use Reckless attack a little more judiciously than you otherwise would on Barbarian. At level 11, we would be a Barbarian 3, and that means we get our Barbarian subclass, and this is where things just really kind of go to the next level for survivability with this build, because yes, we are going with the Wild Heart subclass, and as such, get to choose here a Bestial Heart option. We choose from bear, eagle, tiger, elk, and wolf, and even though in this game the non-bear options are so much better than they are in D&D generally, for this build we just gotta go bear, because bear barbs get resistance when raging to not just physical damage, but to all damage except psychic, and that includes, yes, radiant, and for us this is amazing, and yeah, it makes us a way better tank than we even could be in D&D. Because see, here, when our ally that we've got Warding Bond placed on takes damage and we take half, well, if we have resistance to that damage type, and we almost always will now, then we're actually going to get that resistance applied to the damage we take via Warding Bond, meaning we're only taking a quarter of the total damage dealt, right? Not half like we otherwise would. Oh, and guess what? Our Oath of the Crown Divine Allegiance feature, where we heal an ally for 14 and then take 14 if we use our reaction. And there are no charges for this feature here, people. We can use this reaction every single round if we've got an ally within 5 feet. And I mean, Aura of Protection, right? Allies really want to be close to us anyways. Now more than ever, must be the bear musk. No. That's nasty. It's the lemony fresh scent of Paladin, I think. Okay, now, one thing I'm going to mention here. Yes, it is possible to get resistance to all damage types. Psychic damage can come up fairly frequently in a game where you're fighting lots of mind flayers, right? First off, there are elixirs which you can buy or craft that will give you psychic damage resistance, but if you'd rather use a different elixir on the build, then one option here is to go with a Githyanki as your race if you're going to grab the Psionic Ward armor specifically. I'm not going to spoil where you get this armor, look it up if you want, but there's no guarantee that you're going to have it on your playthrough. If you do end up with it though, yes, if you're Gith specifically, you have resistance to psychic damage, and when you succeed on a saving throw, which you're going to be doing a lot of as a paladin, right, then you heal for a nice little, 1d4 hit points every time. It is medium armor, so it works with rage, and as a result, I'd kind of consider this to be one of the best armors that this build can get in-game if you're okay playing as a Gith. And if your Tav has a different build, well, sure, this might be the build for Lae'zel. Anyways, finally for us, at level 12, we can either go Paladin 8 or Barbarian 4. Pally 8 gives us like a little bit more mileage out of our reaction heal thing, right? But Barbarian 4 is going to give us one more hit point. Either way, we get a feat, and as for what to take, it depends. Do you have the Amulet of Greater Health? If so, awesome. Bump Charisma. Otherwise, yeah, I'm probably bumping Constitution, I think. All right, you want to see the build in action? Let's show some gameplay footage. I'm not planning on winning this fight, just FYI. I won't even show the whole thing. I really just wanted to showcase how good a job this tank can do at keeping, especially their primary ally alive, which in this case, for this example, is going to be Shadowheart. Asterion and Gale are resting peacefully back at camp while I pick a fight with Gortash. I am invisible because I don't want to have any, dialogue go and give spoilers. As far as equipment here, again, nothing like super special that that is just required for this build to work. I mean, I've got a good one-hander, a good shield, some solid medium armor. I do love this Birthright hat on this build for the +2 charisma. And, that's going to let me get all the way up to 22, which is nice. Other than that, just kind of some nice regular old gear and nothing super special. And in fact, not even particularly optimized for tanking, because this playthrough I was not playing a tank. I think I was a holy warrior originally anyways. The two-hander smite kill everything kind of build. So I haven't put a lot of self buffs on myself. Shadowheart's got Warding Bond, and other than that, she's just enjoying Aura of Protection. I'll be raging once combat starts, but I can't do that until then. So let's just kick things off with a little Booming Blade, shall we? All right. So first thing that we want to do is rage, because we're just going to be taking a lot of damage. We want to get our reduction going as quickly as possible. I'd love to be able to rage and taunt on the same turn, but they both take bonus actions, unfortunately, so
we're just going to do that for now and call it good. Shadowheart is a little nervous about the big chunk of damage her tank just took. Why don't we cast Aid? And yeah, you know, this fight probably isn't ideal for what I'm trying to show here, because these Steel Watchers are going to be making attacks against both of us every single time they swing their swords, if we're staying close together. And I do want to stay close together so that I can get my reaction heal, you know, from Pally 7, right? But that's fine. Let's just see what happens. Okay, so we both took damage there, but I'm going to go ahead and use my reaction to heal for 14. But as you see, I only took 7. Right, so yeah, Divine Allegiance. Well, first of all, let's just note that I was hit for 4 radiant damage. Would have been 8, but I have resistance, right? Shadowheart was also hit for 4. Would have been, well, more than that, but she's got a little benefit from Aegis of Fire, but then she also has resistance, thanks to Warding Bond. But the damage that was redirected to me, and then again when I used my reaction for Divine Allegiance, right, it healed her for 14, but I only took 7 because I have resistance, again thanks to the Bear Barb. So it's pretty awesome that I'm continuing to enjoy resistance on Warding Bond damage, right, and on this Divine Allegiance damage. So it's just super efficient way to keep my ally alive. As you can see, they're doing great. I'm not doing quite so well, but you know, I've got things like Lay on Hands. This is not a spell, so I can do it while raging and heal myself for a good chunk. And then, yeah, let's go ahead and do the champion challenge. You know, obviously I could fiddle with this and try and get as many enemies as possible. Reaction attack in the area of effect here, but yeah, good enough. Let's see how many make their save. Challenge. Okay, only 1 saved. That's awesome. So as you can see now, these guys, including Gortash, have this debuff on them, right? Where for 10 turns, they're required to attack me and any attacks they might make. So for example, when this Steel Watcher makes an attack, right, and it's that big sword attack, so it can potentially hit both of us, it will be made with disadvantage against Shadowheart. Not against me, but that's okay. I'm here to take the brunt. Alright, what's Shadowheart gonna do? She's just gonna kinda run around and make sure everybody gets a dose of, oh shoot, don't provoke opportunity attacks from a Steel Watcher when there's somebody standing close to you. Let's just, whatever. She's not my main damage dealer in this party. Oh, that was a half decent firebolt. And yeah, sure. Let's just keep healing the tank. So yeah, he's got champion challenge. He has to attack me. He missed. This guy does not have champion's challenge on me. He was outside of the area, but he tried to attack me anyway. Unsuccessfully. Yes, she's gonna shield. I'm gonna just keep taking damage. Yeah, okay. Let's actually take a look there at what happened when that Spirit Guardian made an attack. It would have been made against, you know, my tank, but of course Shadowheart was standing close. So she was in range. She missed, or they missed her, and as you can see, it's because they had disadvantage. I mean, they might have missed anyways, right? They missed Noximus too. But they missed Shadowheart. They had disadvantage on the attack thanks to the debuff that I have on them of Champion's Challenge. Anyways, I'm not gonna keep doing this. You know, this fight isn't gonna end well for me since I don't really have anybody doing much damage. But just kind of wanted to give you guys a chance to see how well this tank does keeping their friend alive. Sure, often at the expense of their own hit points, but I mean, I'm a tank. That's what I'm supposed to be doing, right? So it's a lot of fun and it feels super powerful. So yeah, I mean, you're going to find that with this build, between Warding Bond, Divine Allegiance, and Champion Challenge, you're going to be taking a lot of damage on this character. And that's perfect. It's exactly as it should be.
thank goodness most or all of that damage for us is going to come in at only half, right? Meaning that we can use our health bar really as like an expendable resource for our allies to heal them, reduce the damage they take, and just generally keep them on their feet like any good tank should do. So that's the Oath of the Crown Pally tank, and that's the video for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you have fun playing with these in-game. I hope you know that I love you. Thank you so much for all that you do for me and for this channel. It means the world to me. It really does. I hope you have a great day and a fantastic week. And if you don't, I really, really, really hope that you won't give up. Please hang in there. I hope that you will do good and be kind and fill the world with lots of cheer. And that I see you again very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. What would we do, baby, without us? What would we do, baby, without us? And there ain't no nothing we can't love each other through. Ooh, what would we do, baby, without us? Sha-na-na-na. Oh, you gotta sing a good 80s sitcom song when you're wearing the Care Bear t-shirt, right? Favorite 80s sitcom song? For my money, Family Ties, that one that I just performed so beautifully. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's where I want it, I think. It's neck and neck with Punky Brewster, right? You may be lonely and then one day you're smiling again. Every time I turn around. Ding, 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 ding. So good. All my Gen Z viewers are like, what's a sitcom? Hey everybody, so here at D4, each week I take a deep dive into... My name is Colby Polson, and it's less of an impressive, and it's arguably less helpful for just about any other fighter subclass than... Here we get 4 per short rest, right? So we're... and 4... So it's a fun way to start off. So it's, not Shadow Arrow. And yeah, that's a nice little bit of damage. But then we also get Channel Oath. But then we also get our subclass, our Oath, right? Right at level... our Oath, right at level 1 in Baldur's Gate 3, which here we can use... wow. Hexblade. But I do...
Fist Sarek seems to be bugged. Well, not complaining.